welcome back to another video. So in this video we are going to discuss about the traffic flow. So we already discussed about the active, passive, active, both of them. Now in this video we will define about the traffic flow. Now coming with the active passive, it was pretty much clear that whenever the Palo Alto which is active, the traffic will flow to with the active only. Now with the active one, this is where the it's a little bit tricky now. So Palo Alto 1 and Palo Alto 2, both of them are connected to ISP and both of them are connected to your internal network. So what happens is like your PC1 has initiated a session and the first session went to the Palo Alto 1, and there is another PC2, and PC2 session has in PC2 also initiated a session, but the session went to the Palo Alto 2. So the traffic is being forwarded for PC1 on Palo Alto 1 and for PC2 on Palo Alto 2. So the traffic will be going out to the internet, okay, for the PC1. If the traffic arrives on from the internet to the Palo Alto 2 for the PC number 1, Palo Alto 2 will check that who owns that session, and it comes to know that Palo Alto 1 is the one who owns the session for the PC1, so it will just forward that session. And similarly, when the traffic goes for the PCT towards the ISP and it has been received on Palo Alto 1, and it will check who owns the session and it will automatically forward that packet to that particular Palo Alto device. So basically what we are saying is that whoever owns the session, whichever device owns the session, the packet will be forwarded to them. Now, coming to the issue which we were facing in the previous video, if you have seen that I was trying to configure the NAT. Alright, so when I was trying to configure the NAT, it was asking me to do some static translated IP address for the NATing or use the floating IP. Alright, so let's discuss about this one using the floating IP. So what is floating IP, how does it works, and we will configure the NAT, and finally we will access the internet. So for that one I do have a different topology. Now you can see that what we configured is already here, but the only difference is the floating IP concept, how it works. Now you see that I am in the inside network and the inside network is 172.168.1.1, and if you remember that both of the inter IP addresses for the both the device is .1 and .1 because they are in a active mode and they have been synchronized, so they are having the same IP address on the inside as well as on the outside also they have only the 128 and .128. So pretty much same IP. Now my router, what happens is like whenever my router is having a default gateway towards 1. Okay, so whenever my router is having default gateway towards the 1, it is try to think because it has been connected to the switch over here, so it will forward to the switch and switch will broadcast that one, and both of them will be responding to that one. So what happens in this case is like switch is doing like a load balancing over here, which we don't want. So what I need is the solution, how the floating IP works in here. So the concept of floating IP is that whenever I configure, so what I'm doing is that individually I am creating an IP address for each device because both of them are active. It's not active passive, both of them are active. So both of them will have their individual IP address with the main IP address. So this will be assigned to the interface, and this we will configure in the active configuration. So we will say to active high availability that for the inside network you have to take this as an IP, floating IP, and for the Palo Alto 2 we will say to take 253 as a floating IP. Similarly to that one we will configure the active for the outside also. So whenever the Palo Alto 1 is going to the internet, we want this address to be taken out, not the 128. And again, similarly with the Palo Alto 2, we want this address to be taking while it should be translated to that address while going to the internet, not to the original address. So in this way, we do have a two segregated routes over here. So now my router has two different routes, default gateways, and now my router can do load balancing. So I don't have to worry about the switch because in the switch the load balancing works when it is LSAP or port channeling, that one, so it works very well. But if it is not, then it doesn't work well. So we want the router to do the load balancing. So router will do the load balancing because it has the two default gateway. One is going to 254 and one is going to 253. Now in case if we don't have a router here, what if we have a switch? Alright, so we remove that router and we will have a switch over. So in that case, what happens is like for PC1, we can give a default gateway towards this one. And for the PC2, we can give a default gateway towards this one. So on the switch, it is not residing any default gateway. The default gateways are residing on the Palo Alto. But instead of router, if we just shift it with the switch, what happens is like the respective PCs will have two different gateways. All right. So they will have two different gateways. They can communicate via their respective Palo Alto. But again, that is not feasible because when we have a failover, then the other will take over the session and it will fail over. That's not a problem. But the thing is that when we are already having 254 and this IP address will be taken over by this one because this will Palo Alto one will also respond to that one in case the other one goes down. Now the best solution would be that we just provide a router over here so that router has both the default gateways, so it doesn't have to worry about it. So router has both the default gateways, so if one of them is down, router can forward it to the another one. And in this way what happens is like the PCs which are connected to the router will have their default gateway same, but with the router the default gateway will be changed. So first what I will do is that I will configure my internal router to the two different default gateways. So let me get the internal access router, and I think I've already configured that one. So let me see, show IP route, and you see that I have configured my router to go via the two different IP address. Now if I say that ping 172.168.1.254, so my router doesn't know where is 254 and where is 253 because we still did not configure anything on the Palo Alto. So if I say that ping 172.161.1.1, it will ping because it does knows because both of them are having .1 and .1, anyone should be pinging. So now we will configure our Palo Altos in such a way that they will have their respective floating IPs for the inside as well as for the outside, and my router should be able to communicate with the internet. So let's go to the management PC now. So on the management PC, if I go back to the dashboard, and you see that it is active primary, active secondary, and here also active primary, active secondary, it is not synchronized. So I will say that synchronized to peer now. So that will be synchronizing with the other Palo Alto. We will leave that for now. Let's go back to our topology now. We will start configuring on the Palo Alto 1 the floating IP for inside as well as for the outside. Now to configure the floating IP, we will go to the device on Palo Alto 1. On the high availability, we will go to the active configuration and we will click on add, and I will select the interface which should be 1/2 because that is the inside. Click on add, give the IP address that is 172.168.1.254, and I will select the type as floating. Device type priority 0 and 1. So what we are saying to this priority is that my Palo Alto device has a 0 priority and Palo Alto 2 has a device priority 1. So whenever you are hosting this IP address, the primary should be hosting that IP address 0 and 1. So 1 is the secondary one. Okay. So always if someone goes down, the primary, whoever is the primary, he will take over. So we'll do the same thing over here, 0 and 1 when we configure this IP. The same thing. It will be first configured to the primary, whoever is the primary, because it's an active. So both of them are active. So respectively, they will host their own IPs first. If anyone goes down, then they will host their IPs also. So we will say 0 and 1. So priority, who is the priority? What is the priority for device 0? 0. That means this IP will be assigned to Palo Alto 1, which is device 0. And what is the priority for the device 1? 1. So I think you cannot go up to 0 to 255. So the lowest is better. So that means this address is now being hosted by Palo Alto 1. Click on OK. Same thing I will create for what I will do is that I will create the same thing for the Palo Alto 2 now, because it will be easier to understand what I am doing. So in the device, high availability, active config, click on add. Same thing, E1/2, click on add. Here I will say 172.168.1.253. But here for the Palo Alto 1, I will say device priority will be 0. For the Palo Alto 2, which will host this IP address, will say 0, reverse way. Okay. So what we said is that for this floating IP, so device 0 will be PA1 and the secondary will be PA2. But here what we said to this IP is that PA2 will be the primary, secondary will be the PA1. And we will do the same thing for this one also. For this IP address, PA1 should be primary and PA2 should be secondary. Again, for this one also we will do PA2 should be primary, PA1 should be secondary. Let's do the same thing now. I will come back to Palo Alto 1. I will click on add again. So we did it for the inside one. So next we are doing for the internet one. So click on interface 1/1, which is facing to the internet. Click on add. And here we will say 192.168.1.254. Palo Alto 1 will have 0 priority, 1 will have 1 priority. Sorry, 1 will have 0 priority, 2 will have 1 priority. Click on OK. Same thing here also I will do the same thing for the Palo Alto 2. I will select 1/1 and here I will select 192.168.1.253. But Palo Alto 1 will have 1 priority, Palo Alto 2 will have 0 priority. Click on OK, click on OK. So now my floating IPs are ready. As per the topology, my floating IPs are ready. Now we will configure our NAT. How to configure the NAT? Let's go to the Palo Alto 1. We will go to the policies. So you see that I don't have any NAT policy. That means my management PC should not be able to ping the internet, which is not able to ping. That's all good. Now we will create a new policy. Click on add and we will say NAT for PA1. Original packet coming from the inside. Destination will be the outside. Destination will be the interface 1/1. Translated address, this is where the trick is. You select dynamic IP and address port, select interface, select the interface which is 1/1 internet. But you see that IP type. Now we select the floating IP. The floating IP will be the one which we created for the active. Okay, .254, click on OK. And that's it. So we will go ahead and commit. And now I will go to Palo Alto 2, go to the policies. And here I will click on add. Do the same thing, NAT PA2. Original packet coming from the inside. Destination will be the outside. Interface will be 1/1. Translated will be dynamic IP and port interface address. Interface will be 1/1. I'm using the floating IP. Floating IP will be 253. Click on OK and commit. Okay, that one active binding primary and both. So it says that the floating IP which I created is says by a primary and both, which is for the NAT rule. So what does it means is like if I go to NAT policy over here, you see that So active active HA binding, I have to select. This is the primary one, 0. So we are assigning the NAT policy specifically to the Palo Alto number 1. Click on OK and commit and commit. I think we should also get the same error here. So we'll go to the NAT policy. We'll go to the active active binding, and this one I will select 1 because I want to assign this NAT policy to Palo active peer, the secondary one, that is Palo Alto 2. Commit and commit. So let's wait for the commit now. So once the commit has been finished, so what should I see is that I do have a management PC over here. Management PC should be able to communicate, as well as PC2 and PC1 should be able to communicate respectively. So router is the one who is doing all the job here. If he wants to do the load balancing, it will do the load balancing accordingly. Since this is a lab, it will definitely not do the load balancing because there is not much traffic going on. Alright, so once the commit is confirmed, you see that commit is successful, and hopefully this one should also be the commit successful. And now what I will do is that I will go to my router, internal router first, and now I will try to ping 254 and 253 now respectively. So if I say that do ping 254, you see that I'm able to ping. And if I say do ping 253, if you see that I'm able to ping. And if I say that show IP road, both of them I have a default gateway. And if I say that ping.8.8.8, and now you see that I'm able to ping. So my router is able to ping means definitely my PCs also will be able to ping. So let's go with the management PC now. Before it was not pinging, now it is pinging. Let's go to the PC1. That's what I have here. And if I say ping 8.8.8, and you see that I'm able to ping, as well as if I come back here, you see that I do have a network 2 connected internet connectivity. Now let's go back to the management PC. To do the testing, I will go to the Facebook. Yes, I'm able to open the Facebook. Let's go to Wikipedia. I'm able to open the Wikipedia, as well as with the Amazon. And you see that I'm able to access the web pages. Right, so now you see that the hit count is number 10 over here. So this one is giving us an idea that the hit count, that means this policy has been hit. So if I go back to PA2, and you see that there is also some hit counts over here. So that means my router is doing the load balancing. That's good. That's a verification that the router is doing the load balancing. And you see that the hit count has been increased in the PA2. And here also it has increased to 200. So that's how we configure the NAT. That is the concept how the traffic flows in the active-active. Because in the active standby, it's pretty straightforward. You don't have to worry much about it. But with the active-active, there is a separation of the floating IPs over here because the traffic is flowing individually with their respective device. So I hope this was informative for you, and thank you.